It's Dan Wilson here, one of the editors at Tame Bay, and I'm really happy to be joined today by Mike Shapaker, who's the Vice President of Europe for ChannelAdvisor, and he's going to be looking at the upcoming Christmas season and how you can optimize your sales. So, hi Mike.
Hi Dan, thanks a lot for that introduction. Happy to be here today talking about Q4. I've been with ChannelAdvisor since 2003 and over here in London for the last year. So before we get started into the holiday details, I figured we'd talk a little bit about ChannelAdvisor. Some of you may not know who we are, so I'll just spend a few minutes telling you about what we do and who we are. So ChannelAdvisor has a software as a service solution that helps retailers and manufacturers sell more online. To keep it simple, we have a number of solutions ranging across digital marketing, marketplaces management, and that's more on the online retail side. And then for manufacturers, we have where to buy technology and product intelligence solutions. Last year, we had approximately $7 billion of GMV come through our system, and we have more than 600 employees worldwide that do nothing but think about e-commerce every day. We are very fortunate to have a number of top global brands as customers. This is just a small sampling to give you some idea of who we work with. And then my last slide on ChannelAdvisor, before we jump into the meat of the presentation, this is how we work. So we'll have customers, again, retailers or branded manufacturers, that will provide us inventory information into our cloud-based software. And then we help to automate, optimize, and expand the channels that those companies work with, again, across digital marketing channels, marketplaces globally, and then through the manufacturing solutions that I discussed. So, I mean, if you look at it from a big picture point of view, our overall goal is to connect supply and demand in the world and help our customers sell more. So with that introduction, let's jump into the presentation. So what we're going to cover here today is a look back at the 2015 holiday season. We did a survey in the spring that talked to retailers about their expectation of holiday 2016 and how that compares to 2015. And so we'll share some of those survey results here on the webinar. And then we'll look at some of what we think are the top trends in e-commerce, and we'll close out with a little Q&A. And so it may seem a little odd to be talking about the holiday here in September. It's still warm outside here in London. Actually pretty warm today. But we're quickly approaching 100 days left to go to Christmas. And as you know, Christmas, the season moves quickly. There's a lot of sales during the season, and it pays to get ahead of the game and be prepared long before the holiday season kicks in. So, you know, one saying about the holiday season is, a day is like a week, and a week is like a month. And, you know, in terms of sales, that's how it goes. So everything needs to be ready well ahead of time. So let's jump right into the conversation here and look at results from 2015. So the consensus here in the UK was that the holiday 2015 accounted for about £24 billion in online sales during that period. And that was up 12% from the previous year in 2014. And if you look back to 2014, I looked back at some articles, and 2014 was up about 13% from 2013. So in line, pretty decent growth. And when in the holiday period here that most of these publications are looking at is really from about the first week of November through Boxing Day approximately. So that time period, that 8 weeks is what we're talking about. So let's get more specific and dive into the holiday 2015. Before I do though, we're going to be using some metrics in here that refer to same-store sales growth. And so just to be clear, these metrics are based on our transactional data, and it's information we give to our customers so they can use it as a benchmark to see how they're doing. To be included in same-store sales analysis, a company on a particular or specific channel has to have been live in both 2014 and 2015. So that way it's a fair comparison of the growth that we see from year over year, and it doesn't factor into our sales team going out and signing up a bunch more customers. It's really just comparing those customers that were live in both periods. So I just want to make that clear to everybody. So if, you may see other growth numbers that don't exactly align with this. This is more of a same-store sales comparison. A couple other terms we may refer to in here is other 3PM or third-party marketplaces. So these are all the marketplaces excluding Amazon and eBay, which are the two largest. Marketplaces such as Tesco, Cdiscount, La Redoute, like that. Google Shopping and product listing ads, I'll probably refer to it both ways in the presentation. We typically kind of lump that in with comparison shopping, but we split that out for the holidays. So we can look at that separately. And then when I talk about search, we're really referring to Google AdWords and then other competitors. So this takes a look at the growth year over year across the holiday season from the beginning of November through kind of up until Christmas. The blue line is holiday 2014, and you can see in 2014 the year over year growth from the prior year was pretty strong, really early in the season in November, and then it declined and kind of steadied off towards the end of December there. The holiday 2015, which is represented by the red line, took a more traditional pattern. We saw a lot more growth there around the Cyber 5, and then the growth held steady through December. So this is actually global data looking across everything we see in the world. And one hypothesis we have for 2014 was in the United States in 2013, there was a lot of shipping issues where a lot of customers ordered late in December and didn't get their packages in time for the holidays. So we think that may have driven, at least in the U.S., a lot of growth earlier in the 2014 holiday period, where more and more people, kind of did their shopping early with the memory of those shipping issues in place from the year before. And then last year reverted back to a more normal pattern. What's interesting in the UK, so this is global data we're looking at here, but in the UK, according to IMRG Capgemini, last year on Black Friday, there was a year-over-year sales increase of 62%, which is astounding. And so, Black Friday doesn't precisely line up with this chart, but nevertheless, if we stripped out, some of the global data and just looked at the UK, we might see that red line even a little bit higher around that Cyber 5 period. And then on Black Friday itself, online sales grew 36% year over year in the UK. The 62%, sorry, was for the week of Black Friday, and then Black Friday itself was 36% year on year. So even though that started out as a U.S. phenomenon, it's definitely taken off in popularity in the U.K. as well. And Dan and I were chatting before we started here, and Dan thinks Amazon, really promoting Black Friday sales has had a big influence here in the U.K. as well with that. So we kind of looked across the calendar. Let's look at that Cyber 5 where we saw the spike. The total growth rate during the Cyber 5, in 2015 year over year was just under 21%. And again, this is global data, and you can tell that because Thanksgiving Day same-store sales was 43%. So obviously Thanksgiving is an American holiday, but obviously becoming a more important e-commerce shopping day in the United States, as you can see here by that growth. Black Friday, 20%, and then pretty solid growth through the rest of the weekend and into Cyber Monday. And if the bottom part of the chart are ComScore's view of the top online shopping days globally, and they have Cyber Monday pegged as the #1 day, followed by Cyber Tuesday, and then Black Friday, and then Green Monday, which is actually the last Monday before the shipping deadlines in the holiday season. And then the other Monday that's kind of in between Cyber Monday and Green Monday was another peak day according to ComScore. Again, here in the UK, we see that Black Friday was actually #1 last year, and then Cyber Monday was #2. The total sales, according to IMRG, on Black Friday in the UK last year was £1.1 billion. And I think Amazon put out notice that they set records on that day in the UK with 7.4 million items sold last Black Friday. So a couple things to take away here. Black Friday is obviously now pretty important in the UK. And then as you're looking at your promotional calendars, you can see a lot of Mondays as top holidays. So, this may be obvious, but, be prepared for your Mondays if those are strong days for you as well, as they seem to be for, most of the industry. This chart actually looks at 2015 just in terms of the GMV we see by day. We don't have it labeled on the axis, but you can kind of see the patterns. The big spike is Cyber Monday, and then the other spike is Black Friday to the left. And again, if we were just looking at the UK, I would imagine that these spikes might be reversed based on what we've just talked about. According to Internet Retailer, quoting an IMRG Capgemini study, again, the greatest concentration of sales across the holiday period occurred in the week of Black Friday, and that was about 17% of sales. At the end of the season there, towards December, you see the sales tailing off, and this is a trend that I think we all expect and we all see year over year. But the interesting thing is, 5 years ago, there was relatively low activity as you got closer to Christmas. But over the last 5 years, every year that activity keeps growing more and more. And actually, those days are actually growing faster than the overall e-commerce numbers. And I think that's because more and more companies are able to deliver packages faster and faster. And so people realize they can't order up until the last minute, and so sales are growing during that time period. So that's an interesting thing that we're seeing toward the end of the holiday season as you get towards Christmas.
I think last year, if you had Amazon Prime Now, you could order up till 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve, which is astonishing.
It is astonishing, and I feel sorry for the people who have to
do the deliveries.
To do the deliveries, yeah. But it's getting later and later, and we'll talk a little bit more about delivery a bit later in the webinar. Just another couple interesting points here. We're going to talk a little bit about mobile as well and the importance of mobile. According to some of the data we've seen, the peak smartphone day was Cyber Saturday. That was about 53% of traffic on that day. And if you count tablets and mobile, Cyber Saturday had 68% of traffic coming from mobile, and that compares to desktop at 32%. So if that trend continues, we could work our way past 70% in terms of traffic for holiday 2016 coming from mobile, and really having desktop be less than a quarter of all traffic. So if you're a retailer that it really isn't thinking about having a mobile first strategy, that's probably something you should consider for 2016. And then this shows GMV, but when you think about conversion rates, typical conversion rates are in the 3% range. If you believe ComScore, Monetate, kind of look across a wide swath of companies. Conversion rates increase significantly during the holidays. Again, I assume most of you are aware of that from your own data. That definitely factors into planning and what you're willing to invest, knowing that you're going to get that much more out of it. So I spent the last few slides looking at particular days and how the traffic is spread across days. But let's take a look at the channels and what we saw in 2015 in terms of the various large e-commerce players. So overall, we saw 13.3% same-store sales growth year over year across the whole holiday period. Amazon, you can see, came in above that at about 17%. Other third-party marketplaces, grew an astonishing almost 50% year over year, according to our data. Now, of course, it's coming from a much smaller base, so it's easier to show higher percentage growth numbers. But nevertheless, something to pay attention to as those marketplaces show more and more success. eBay was up 5%, a little bit slower than some of the other channels, but again, growth. The traditional comparison shopping was flat to slightly down. And then if you look at Google, it's pretty interesting. Google, the traditional search was actually down close to 18%, but that doesn't mean Google had a bad Q4 or holiday period. What it means is we see more and more of our customers shifting their budgets into Google Shopping or product listing ads, and so that's why you see that growth at 32%. So it's a little bit of shift in budget there as we see these trends across those channels. So just to summarize a couple of the key things we saw in 2015, mobile has expanded clearly the times and the days that people shop. It's growing much faster than desktop traffic, so definitely make sure that gets the appropriate attention moving forward, not only in Q4, but throughout the rest of the year as well. Delivery, I mentioned that a little bit. Delivery expectations are putting a lot of pressure on retailers. So customers, all of us want fast, we want free shipping, and obviously Amazon, as Dan just mentioned, has set the bar at 1 day in most of the UK or less even. And then, if you look at the US and maybe some other countries in Europe, that gets to 2 days. But nevertheless, that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of traditional retailers. According to some statistics we saw from ListTrack and Kurt Salmon, in 2015, 90% of retailers offered some way for customers to get free shipping, and that was up 15% from 2014. And then we saw that 64% of retailers offered free shipping on everything in 2015, and that was up 28% from 2014. So obviously this is a trend where more and more companies are offering this, and it's going to put some pressure logistically on companies. We see shoppers, especially in the UK, here shopping a bit earlier now that Black Friday's on the scene. Amazon, as always, in recent past, is a large beneficiary of all these trends. They're leading, actually, in many of these areas and really forcing the industry down a lot of these paths. And then, as I mentioned, omni-channel marketplaces did pretty well last year. So we've looked at 2015 and some of the highlights from last year. Let's take a look now at what your peers are saying about the upcoming holiday based on the survey we did this year. And so the survey was done with about 200 online retailers, I think primarily based in the US and the UK. And it was done by third parties, so these aren't our customers. This is just random third-party data. So it's not influenced by anything ChannelAdvisor is doing or not doing. And you can see the distribution here of the online businesses that were surveyed. In the U.S., I think the distribution was probably had a little bit less in the 20 to 40 million pound range. But nevertheless, we have a pretty good spread of businesses all the way from, again, that lower 20 to 40 million in online sales a year range, all the way up to companies doing more than 750 million pounds a year. So we had a good representative sample of online retailers, both in the U.S. and the U.K., as we go through these results. So the first thing we asked these retailers when we surveyed them was, what percentage of your annual sales come during the Christmas season? And so you can see about 2/3, if you look at the two middle bars there, it's about 2/3 of the respondents said that between 20 and 40% of their annual sales came within the holiday period. So obviously the holiday is very important for most retailers. About 25%, a little bit more, said that really less than 20% of their sales came during this period. And then 8% of the retailers said 40% or more of their sales came during this period. So, I mean, regardless of how you look at it, the holiday season is pretty important to most of the companies we surveyed, and that's probably pretty representative for all the businesses that are out there. The next question we asked looked at expectations for Christmas 2016 versus 2015. So the biggest group here is cautiously optimistic, I would say, expecting an increase of between 1 to 10% year over year in their online business. About 33% expects sales increase of 11% or more. Those are the top two lines. And then there's a fair amount of pessimists, 22%, that expect their online sales to decrease. We don't understand, we don't have the follow-up detail to understand why that might be. But it could be for any number of reasons. Nevertheless, most businesses expect, good 60% or so expect sales to increase year over year. And this is very important because obviously your expectations for the season, excuse me, are going to impact your inventory buys. And so if you expect sales to go down, you might back away a little bit. And I guess it's a fine balancing act because you don't want to get to Cyber Monday and be running out of inventory, and then the low expectations become a self-fulfilling prophecy because you didn't have the inventory on hand to address the business that's coming your way. But on the flip side, I understand nobody wants lots of excess inventory either. So it's a tricky balance, and the expectation is actually a very important question. The next thing we asked is the timing of your holiday promotions. And so we're in September now, and September was the #1 month when a lot of retailers told us they were going to start their holiday promotions, so we should expect to see a lot of that happening soon. The interesting thing is, it's this year, actually, we did this survey in the spring, and a lot of companies said they're actually going to start much earlier in the summer, as early as June, July, and August. And so theoretically, a lot of companies in our survey have already started some of their holiday promotions. So I guess it's maybe too early to tell how how expectations actually played into reality, but we'll maybe get a little bit more read on that next year.
Certainly eBay are on the record as saying that they've had a surprisingly strong August.
Yes.
Good Christmas searches going through the roof in August.
Yes.
So
that could be some example of these promotions out there, and then eBay maybe doing some of their own and reaping some of the benefits of that promotional activity. So the next question is, what are your top strategies for? Actually, what is your top strategy for increasing your Christmas holiday sales this year? And the number one response, across both geographies, was increasing the digital marketing and advertising budget. So in some ways, this is kind of relying on old tricks of pushing the more button and getting more sales. And this makes perfect sense during the holiday period. I mentioned higher conversion rates, and most companies reevaluate their campaigns and increase their budgets during this time of year. So again, it makes perfect sense. Something to keep an eye on as you go through this year and then in future years. At some point in the future, maybe this doesn't work as well, so you'll need to be ready to adjust, as you see the results coming in. The second most popular response was increasing online promotions on Thanksgiving and Black Friday. And the U.S. respondents, rated this as something they're going to do more of, which isn't surprising given that, Thanksgiving is a U.S. holiday. But for UK sellers, this might be something to look into. With Black Friday being the number one sales day last year, it may be worthwhile to increase some promotional activities during this time period, and that's not really reflected in the survey results that we saw. Other couple common responses were offer more holiday promotions this year, slightly higher in the UK. And then offer free shipping and returns, almost double in the UK what the response was in the US. And I suppose that's not surprising. With the one-day shipping in the UK, and the shipping in the UK is probably generally quite a bit easier than in the US. If you imagine from coast to coast, it's a lot more difficult to maybe offer some of those things. So these are the top strategies that we saw from the survey results. The next question dug a little bit deeper into the digital marketing, specifically focused on the things you do with Google primarily, and asked about how that budget is to be allocated. So what's interesting is in the U.S. was more likely to do PLAs only, with 47% to the UK 34%, and then on the flip side, in the UK the retailers are more likely to do both. So I can't comment on one strategy, the other. We somewhat advocate all of the above, if it makes sense for your business. But if you add it up, about 73% of UK retailers are doing PLAs and 78% in the US. That's a relatively high number, but probably still pretty low if you look at the trends and how the spend is moving on Google. We would expect any company with product-based inventory to be doing Google Shopping. Those ads are converting better in many cases, and they're doing a lot to make it look good on mobile. And it's something, if you're not doing Google Shopping, it's something you definitely should consider. So the next question we asked is, what is your biggest e-commerce challenge during the holiday season? And we've touched on this a little bit. Fulfilling orders on time at 51% was the highest response. There's only so much shipping capacity out there. People are worried about meeting the shipping obligations. As we discussed, Amazon has set the bar with fulfillment, and trying to meet those expectations is both a challenge logistically and from a cost perspective for a lot of retailers. Adjusting to competitor activity, such as promotions, was the second biggest challenge cited. So a lot of companies, you go in with a promotional calendar, you have a certain set of products you really want to promote, going into the holiday season. And then, you get into it, and then you realize you maybe have a competitor on some of those products with lower pricing. So I think that's what this response is getting to. And probably the best way to combat that is to look at really having plans, B, C, and D. So you have a plan A, and be able to adjust quickly if you see your plan A is not going to work for whatever reason. Make sure you can react quickly to changes. And then competing with Amazon is the third most common response. And really, I think the top two responses are really all about competing with Amazon as well in some way, shape, or form. So even though that comes in third, I think fulfilling orders on time really comes down to being able to match what Amazon can do. So it's pretty related, I think.
Mike, we've had a question come in, and it relates to the previous slides. Cara was asking, what's a PLA?
Okay, PLA. PLA is a short acronym for product listing ads, and product listing ads are what Google call their ads that have the images and specific product details. So Google Shopping is another name for it. Product listing ads is a name for it. I'll probably use both interchangeably. I mean the same thing when I say one or the other.
Thanks.
So the final question in the survey that we'll talk through here is, what date will your cutoff day for guaranteed on-time Christmas deliveries be? And the consensus, among the companies surveyed was December 20th. So these are global results here. I suspect that maybe this skews a day or two later here in the UK, but nevertheless, around the 20th is the time when most companies said they would cut guaranteed deliveries off. Regardless of what your day is, I think the most important point here is to make sure that it's clearly stated on your website and that you're very transparent, and that all your consumers are 100% aware of when those dates are, so there's no misaligned expectations as they go through the process. So I'm not going to go through these next two slides in a lot of detail. But we talked a lot about in the first section about what are the important dates and some of those Mondays and Black Friday. And then we talked about getting digital marketing ready to bid that up for the holidays, and that being the #1 strategy for a lot of companies during the holiday season. So this just roughly highlights some dates on a calendar of when those activities might take place. Obviously, every business is unique, and so you may choose slightly different dates to do some of these things and have slightly different peak days. But nevertheless, we wanted to just flash this up here quickly, give everybody a rough idea of when these types of activities might occur. So we've talked about 2015. We've talked about what your peers are thinking about for 2016. Now let's look at some of the trends that we see that are happening now and towards the end of 2016. And for those of you who follow our blogs, or maybe you've come to our events, such as Catalyst, some of these are old topics we talk about a lot. We mention them a lot, but we do so because we think they're very important topics to understand as you're kind of navigating the e-commerce environment and to try to maximize your sales. So we're going to start off with Amazon. So everybody knows that Amazon is huge. They're executing well. They're getting bigger and bigger every year. Not everybody maybe understands the full scope of their size and what their impact is on retail. And one interesting fact that a bank in the United States called Wells Fargo put out last Q4, or after Q4, they said that Amazon had captured more than 51% of applicable retail growth dollars. This was in the U.S. in Q4. But obviously they're doing this globally as well. And so they said applicable retail growth dollars. They didn't say online growth dollars. They said retail. So that's all growth dollars. So of all the growth that happened in Q4 in the U.S. in 2015, Amazon accounted for 51% of that growth. So a lot of larger retailers, globally, but in the U.S. as well, had tougher holidays last year, and there's some blame on the weather and other factors, that might have come out. But in reality, Amazon had a lot to do with that, as they're starting to gobble up more and more of e-commerce. So just continuing on this theme of Amazon being big and gaining share, this is something you may have heard us talk about before. When Amazon reports their revenue, and I think it was something like $107 billion US dollars in 2015, somewhere along those lines, that revenue accounts for a couple different things. So Amazon's a retailer, and when they buy inventory from a manufacturer in kind of a wholesale model, and then they act as a retailer and sell it, they'll sell that item, using the example here, for 100 pounds, and then that revenue that they report is 100 pounds of revenue. But as we know, many of our customers know, and probably many of the people on this webinar know, Amazon is also a big marketplace, and so they allow third parties to sell on their site. So if a third party takes that same item for 100 pounds and sells it for 100 pounds on Amazon, Amazon only reports their fees associated with that as revenue. So in this example, assume that their fees are 10%. In reality, they're between like 8 and 15%, depending on the category. but assume they're 10%, Amazon will report 10 times of revenue on that sale. So if you imagine 2 items being sold, one by Amazon, one by a marketplace, a third-party marketplace seller, that results in 200 pounds of retail sales, but Amazon's only reporting 110 pounds of revenue. So in reality, their influence on retail is, arguably twice as large as what they're reporting in terms of their revenue. And this takes a look at the marketplace side of things. So obviously, Amazon's third-party revenue, as we just discussed, masks its overall retail sales influence. But we think, based on our analyses, we think the third-party side of Amazon is actually growing faster by unit volume than the retail side of its business. So, if you look into the future, Amazon's revenue will continue to grow, but know that, as this third-party marketplace continues to grow, their retail influence will actually be growing faster over that time than you think it is, because they are only reporting a fraction of the revenue. So, what can you do about Amazon? As someone who sells products online or manufactures products. So, as a retailer or a seller, our view is you might as well join third-party marketplaces and join Amazon. They have tens of millions of highly engaged users. You might as well get in front of that audience. As a manufacturer or vendor, most of these folks have first-party or wholesale relationships with Amazon. And so there's a number of tools Amazon provides to optimize your presence there and your content and to make sure your items are being promoted. So definitely, on the manufacturer side, continue doing that. And then, Amazon may not actually pick up 100% of your catalog. And if that's the case, then you can also consider, as a manufacturer, put in the rest of your catalog that Amazon maybe doesn't want in the wholesale relationship onto the third-party marketplace to fill out your offering. So, one thing when we say, we think everybody should jump on Amazon and join the marketplace, there are some sellers or retailers that are hesitant to do that, for a variety of reasons. Maybe they have unique strategy or unique product that they fear by being on Amazon, it's going to maybe give away some of their secrets to Amazon. So if you're in that bucket, and we know we have plenty of sellers that have no problem putting 100% of their catalog in Amazon, but we have others that are a little more hesitant. And so if you're in the bucket of people that are a little more hesitant, I just wanted to touch on a possible strategy that may work for you. And what we really say it's not really an all or nothing proposition that you have to make or decision you have to make. So the first thing we would say is look at your catalog, and if you have some overlap with Amazon, if Amazon's already selling some of the products you have, you might as well get on Amazon and put your name out there for selling that product. There's nothing new that Amazon's going to learn from you because they're already selling it. They already know probably everything there's to know about those products. So there's really nothing you're going to give away by doing that. And again, you'll be in front of that big, large audience on Amazon. Then the next thing to look at is your unique selection, your unique part of your catalog. And I would divide that into maybe 2 buckets. So one bucket of that product, of the unique product, is maybe non-strategic. And that inventory, the non-strategic but unique inventory, is something you can put on Amazon. And that'll get in front of that large audience. You may be the only seller for those products in front of that large audience. They may reap you some benefits. And then it's likely that the non-strategic stuff is going to attract competition inevitably anyway. So having it on Amazon is maybe make that happen a little bit faster, but not that much more than it will eventually anyway. And then the inventory that you feel is strategic and that is unique to your business, you can still hold that back, keep that off of Amazon, and sell that on your own website. And that allows you to kind of play in front of that large Amazon audience on the marketplace, and then also kind of maintain some of your own strategy on your website. So again, this is just an idea. It may not apply to everybody. There's lots of companies that are happy to put their whole catalog in Amazon, but we do hear from time to time companies that are a little leery about doing that. So this is one method of possibly doing that. And then regardless of how you play on Amazon, as a third-party seller, they have something called Amazon Sponsored Ads. And this is a really good way to get some of your products in front of more potential buyers on Amazon. It's for those of you who aren't familiar, it's almost like having a Google digital marketing offering within Amazon. It's not Google. It's all run by Amazon, but it's a way you can manage ads and really promote your inventory on Amazon. And it's been pretty effective for a number of the customers that we use it for on Amazon.
Certainly, from the sellers I've spoken to recently, that is something well worth experimenting with if you haven't already.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And you can try it with a limited budget, see how it works. You manage it in much the same way as you would manage, like I said, a Google campaign. So you can allocate, budgets and try different things. It's definitely worth checking out. It does cost a little bit more, but it could benefit you in terms of additional sales. And then, as long as we just talked about Amazon, but there's obviously lots of other marketplaces out there. So, as long as you're selling on Amazon and you're kind of set up to work with marketplaces, we advocate trying lots of marketplaces. There are lots around the world. eBay, obviously huge, also tens of millions of buyers, been in this a long time, lots of dedicated, passionate consumers on that site. Definitely eBay would be another option. And that's in the kind of the horizontal marketplace category of lots of products for everybody. Tesco is in that category, Walmart in the U.S., and there's other examples as well. And then there's other vertical marketplaces as well, so electronics-based marketplaces or apparel-based marketplaces, whichever really applies to your category. They're worth taking a look at, seeing what they have to offer, what their terms are, and really, as big as Amazon is, not everybody in the world is on Amazon or is a dedicated Amazon shopper. A lot of these marketplaces have their own dedicated user base, and so getting in front of them is a way to increase your audience.
Yeah, by our reckoning at TameBay, we think there's something like 400 marketplaces in Europe of various sizes and different geographies. So there is a massive amount of choice.
Yep, and it seems to be a growing number. All right, let's look at mobile. I talked about mobile trends earlier in the presentation, looking at the peak days and the percentage of mobile traffic on those days. So we saw in 2015, for really the first time across our customer base, the majority of clicks and traffic came from mobile phones. And you can see that with the orange line crossing the blue line there toward the right of the graph. And we think it's unlikely that those lines will ever cross again. We think mobile is probably the dominant form of, way that people access the internet and shop moving forward. And then Google has announced stats along these lines as well. So, if we haven't said enough already, mobile's where the action is. Make sure you can handle mobile. Just a quick stat on Europe here. This was a survey done by ComScore and some others, asking smartphone users, how many of you have made a purchase in the last month? And this was done across a 3-month period in early 2016. In the UK, way out front of everybody else, with more than a third of the population surveyed saying they bought something on their smartphone in the last month or so. And then obviously Italy's pretty high, and then some of the other European countries as well. These numbers keep going up, really, regardless of your geography. They may even be higher in some developing countries where there wasn't the non-mobile infrastructure, really. But even in the countries like the UK, the US, these numbers just continue to grow. So in terms of actions, we've seen that more and more people are using mobile, and the thing is, when you're talking about an online transaction, consumers seem to like apps better than they like the mobile web, and that's because you would understand this if you've ever tried to put your shipping address or your credit card information into a mobile screen on a mobile site that's not extremely optimized to do that. It's a very frustrating experience, and so consumers prefer apps. But not everybody can have an app. There's only so many companies in the world that can build an app that are going to have enough attention, enough name recognition to get consumers to download that app and put it on the front screen of their smartphone. And any of the apps buried on page 4 or 5 of your smartphone aren't going to get used. So consumers prefer apps, but in reality, most of us aren't going to build apps that anybody's going to download and use. So what do? The first thing you can do is align yourself with the big names. And so I've just touched on this, but if you're looking at marketplaces, Amazon and eBay have mobile apps that are used by millions and millions and millions of people. And so if your inventory is on Amazon or eBay in particular, and some of the other ones do as well, I'm talking about Amazon and eBay because they're the biggest. If your inventory is on there, you're already taking advantage of that, of being able to access that mobile customer. If you're not on there, it's something to consider. By getting on Amazon and eBay, you're in front of a lot of people on mobile in their apps. The next thing to look at is your own website, obviously. And you have to make sure your sites work great with mobile Safari and then mobile Chrome browsers, so you can pick up the iOS and the Android users. You can hopefully do everything you can to have the most cutting-edge mobile features possible. Frictionless payment methods is something to look into. That will probably help pay dividends down the line to help get your conversion rates up on mobile. That really kind of it prevents people from having to type in all the information through their smartphone, which again is a pretty frustrating experience. So definitely something to look into for your own website. And then there's programs that pop up from time to time, and Google had a program that did pretty well last holiday. You can actually purchase directly through the Google shopping ads. They call it purchases on Google. It wasn't widespread last holiday, and it's probably still not extremely widespread yet. But if you could take advantage of that program, that's something else to take advantage of. And really, what Google's trying to solve there is, with Google Shopping, you can click on a product you're interested in and click on a retailer, and you're maybe stuck back in that same place of having to type in all your information. And so Google was trying to take that difficult piece out of the equation. And so that's why they've been experimenting with that with their Google Shopping program. So it's finished up mobile. Let's jump over to product advertising. So product advertising, we think, is the future of digital marketing. It's visual in nature. It's mobile oriented. And I mentioned earlier that we see spend shifting from text-based ads to more of the shopping-based ads. You're probably familiar with Google Shopping, Google product listing ads. It's been the most common. But the format's also been adopted by Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest with their rich pins. And really, with all these programs, you provide a feed of all your products, and then you can do advertising against that feed and run campaigns against that feed. And this is doing really well for our customers that they do it. And so it's a great way to get out in front of mobile customers again, and a great way to really hit consumers at all places along the funnel. Just a quick point on this. This shows Google and Facebook revenue. Facebook is obviously growing pretty quick over the last several years. They're obviously starting from a smaller base, so it's, again, easier to show some of that faster growth. But really what's driving a lot of this growth is mobile, and they've done a really good job with the product-driven ads that I just spoke about. They've done a good job integrating those ads not only into the mobile experience, but into the news feed. So it's kind of a seamless part of your Facebook experience, and Instagram kind of doing the same thing. And then Google's taken steps as well, which I'll highlight here in a minute, to make their product ads more mobile friendly. So if you think about kind of a traditional advertising funnel, you have a discovery phase at the top, and then you read your way down to the transaction phase. So at the top of the funnel in the discovery phase is where people are searching for broad terms and trying to maybe figure out who sells certain types of items that they're interested in. And so we see companies, the Pinterest rich pins, some of the Bing product ads, the traditional Google AdWords have traditionally worked well at the discovery phase, where somebody types in, men's trainers or trousers or shirts or whatever, at the really kind of high level keyword at the top of the funnel. And then the Facebook and Instagram that I just talked about, some of those programs they're more towards the middle of the funnel, because they actually allow you to do audience targeting and audience matching, and then do retargeting against people that may have been on your site before. And again, money kind of flowing into those types of programs are exploding, as we saw on the previous slide. And then traditionally, Google Shopping worked very well at the bottom of the funnel, where consumers are typing in very specific product, MPNs or UPCs or EANs, to figure out, okay, who's selling this and who's selling this at a good price with good shipping that I'm willing to buy this from. But Google is also taking some steps now with Google Shopping to kind of move it back up the funnel. So let's take a look at some of the things they've been doing. They have something called a remarketing list for search ads. The abbreviation is RLSA. It's kind of a mouthful, but it's a feature that lets you customize your search ad campaigns for people who have previously visited your site. So it's kind of a retargeting, and it allows you to tailor your bids and ads to those visitors when they're searching on Google or Google partner sites. They also have a feature called Customer Match, which allows advertisers to upload customer email lists that can be matched against signed-in email accounts on Google, and allows you to specifically target or exclude customers with your Google Shopping or PLA ads. And then finally, they've fairly recently announced something called Google Showcase Shopping Ads, and that allows you to show ads when a consumer searches on a very broad or generic term. So this goes all the way back up to the top of the funnel in the discovery phase. So what happens is you search on this broad term, and then a list of retailers with some images will appear, and then the consumer clicks on a retailer, and then they'll land on a Google-hosted landing page that has a bunch of product selection available from that retailer. And then at that point, when a consumer clicks on one of those more specific product ads, that's when you'll get charged. So you won't get charged by Google kind of getting down to that retailer level page, but it'll be more like a traditional Google shopping ad from that point forward if the consumer then finds a specific product and clicks through to your website. So again, this looks at the funnel, and all of these programs now are really targeting really all aspects of this funnel as we see the product-based ads becoming more and more popular. So as you get involved in these, think about the keywords that people use at the beginning of the search process. Think about how you can retarget people that have maybe been on your website or your current customers, and how you can maybe take advantage of some of these programs to do that. And then finally, think about how you optimize your Google Shopping or product listing ad campaigns for those very specific keywords at the point in time when the buyers are ready to transact. So this last slide in this section here really just summarizes some of the programs I spoke about. As I've mentioned, generally speaking, we've seen a lot of great success with clients on Google using some of the enhanced capabilities to target audiences. We've seen success with our customers using Facebook and Instagram to do some of this, and other social media sites as well. So a lot of good tools out there to really start targeting customers all the way through the funnel. We're almost done here, so I'm going to close the webinar by just doing a quick summary of some of the things we've talked about into a Holiday 2016 checklist. And
don't forget, if you do have any questions, you can fire that over to me via the question facility online, and we'll answer any questions we get. We've had a few in.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. We'll do our best to answer those. I'll finish out with this slide, and then we'll dive into that. So really, as you get into the Holiday 2016, or really now, because now's the time we need to all start preparing, definitely have a promotional calendar mapped out. Prioritize your peak days. May or may not align to the peak days we spoke about. So look at your past data and figure that out. Obviously, keep working on the fulfillment part. I know that's a challenge based on the survey results. But consumer expectations continue to increase in this area. They want free and fast delivery. And as obviously part of making this work, you have to work with your fulfillment partners to make sure they can meet your peak season capacity demands. Very importantly, make sure you clearly communicate that shipping cutoff date. You don't want to overpromise and then underdeliver and have packages arrive late. At the same time, you don't want to lose out on a lot of last-minute sales that you could have had, with efficient shipping there. So make sure you pick the right day and communicate that clearly. Whether you're a retailer or a brand, definitely have an Amazon strategy. There's maybe not one size fits all strategy, but they're big and they're growing, so definitely have a plan for Amazon. If you're on there, ensure you're promoting your top products. And while you're at it, make sure you're taking advantage of some of the other third-party marketplaces as well, eBay, and then many, many others, as Dan mentioned, across Europe. Finally, I've talked about it a ton, but mobile accounts for the majority of traffic. So it's essential to make sure your website can handle mobile, and it provides a very good user experience on mobile. And then, as I closed out by saying, we believe everybody should really take a look at product advertising. And if you're part of the, I think, 27% that's not doing that, according to the survey, definitely start taking a look at that and experimenting. And then, because Chinese Singles Day occurs on 11/11, which is right in the thick of our holiday promotions, if you have a Chinese audience, if you have the ability to fulfill in China, you might as well add that to your promotional calendar and take advantage of that as well, since it's right during this time period. Now, with all of these efforts on marketplaces and digital marketing, there's a lot to do, and every company's at maybe a different stage of how they do things. But I always like to think about it in a pretty simple way. And the first thing I like to think about is before you start thinking of 100 different things you can do, make sure you have the basics taken care of first. Obviously, make sure you have the basics of being able to ship a product on time to somebody. Make sure you have the basics of having the right inventory in place so you don't sell out too quickly or don't have any inventory at all to sell during the holiday period. But then when you get on marketplaces and digital marketing, make sure you have those basics in place. Make sure you're up and running. You've tested live transactions. If you're going to restructure all your Google ad campaigns, which companies do from time to time, don't wait until November 1st to do that. Do it now and test it. Make sure everything's working like you want it to work before you get to the holiday period. But then once you have the basics in place, maybe it's a little bit more fun to then start looking at what else you can do. And we saw that digital advertising and bidding that up is a key strategy for many companies this time of year. A lot of what we do with our customers here is we go back and look what did well last year. We looked at the products that sold well. We looked at the categories that worked well. We looked at the keywords that performed well. And during the course of the summer, the off season, you might have bid some of those down. But now's the time to do all that analysis and be prepared to bid those keywords, bid those products, and get that back up in front of consumers as we enter into the holiday period. I think that's it.
Great.
For the presentation. So yeah, if we have questions, we'll.
Yeah, we've got a few. I'm not sure we'll be able to necessarily answer them. So they're quite specific.
If they're specific, we can get back to people.
Yeah. Here's a question from Kate. Can you submit a product feed to Facebook like you do for Google Shopping?
Yes, there is a means of. Facebook has something called dynamic product ads, and there is a means of submitting the product feed to Facebook, and then they have your product data, and then you can set the ads against that. I'm not the expert to tell you exactly how to do that, but we have a whole team of people here, and we're happy to get back in more detail with how to do that and point you in the right direction.
Great. And this is from Alexander. I'll probably follow this up with you, Alexander, because it's quite a big question. What are the other marketplaces in Europe? A list would be great, or how can we find them, please? I mean, it depends, doesn't it? Which country?
It depends. I highlighted some of them on a slide earlier, but Amazon and eBay are active in many European countries, and so typically it may not always be the largest, but they're close to the largest in many of the countries they're in. So that's definitely one. In the UK, we had Rakuten just shut down in the UK. They were active in some other places. Mano, Flubit, C-Discount, La Redoute in France, Tesco here in the UK. Now, some of these are, some of the marketplaces are. There's a whole variety of marketplaces, right? Like I said, some are kind of horizontal, appealing to everybody. Some are more very specific vertically. There's probably a list way too long to answer if you start going down into that much detail. But do understand that some of the marketplaces are wide open to anybody, kind of like an eBay or an Amazon. Some of them may be more gated, so where they're very selective in who they let on because they're trying to control a certain set of inventory on there.
I think a good example of that in the UK is ASOS and Not on the High Street, which both you have to be vetted and cleared, and they're quite choosy about who they take on.
Right, absolutely. And Zalando is another one that's like that a little bit.
It's a fashion marketplace in Germany, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. They have outside of Germany as well, but yeah. So there's a long list. We can definitely get back to you with all the ones that we know about. And ChannelAdvisor supports, I think, 50 something of them globally at least. So we can give you our list, but as Dan mentioned, there's a longer list as well that you may choose to explore.
At TameBay, we've been meaning to complete the list and publish it, but it's such a vast job, we haven't quite got round to it.
Yeah.
But we do write about lots of other marketplaces when we can. Right, well, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Mike, for a fascinating presentation. Don't forget, if you've been listening in, we'll be publishing this online so you can listen again or share it with friends. But wishing you a very, very good Christmas season. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Good luck.